Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Knecht, president of Universal Accounting Center. And once again, we're gathering today to actually learn things that we can use to implement in our businesses to offer premier accounting services and most importantly, get paid what we're worth, being the premier accounting firm in our area. Now, as such, what we actually do in this podcast is each week have on the experts to share with us insights as it relates to our business, ranging from topics of staff training, offering quality accounting services, tech stacks, mental health, marketing, pricing, basically a variety of things that we need to consider as we're working on our business. Today's going to be no exception simply because I'm excited about our conversation we're going to be having today. It is with Sarah Webb. She happens to be someone who started a CFO and accounting business. And this is something that I think you're all going to appreciate. She began Web CFO after she was in corporate. So she launched her virtual CFO and accounting firm after a career in tax preparation and corporate finance with roles at global corporations like PWC and Alcon Laboratories, as well as a leadership position as a controller with a local family organization. She went on to run multiple media companies, and this is one called Plaid for Women's, and founded a nonprofit as well that was focused on bully-proofing young girls. Now, she took her varied and rich leadership experience, financial and tax roles, and combined them into basically the virtual CFO and bookkeeping firm that she now operates, where they work with small to medium-sized businesses that can benefit from her expert financial guidance without needing to hire someone full-time. Tara's actually working with clients that she can help with her education, her experience, her insights, as she actually helps them achieve peace of mind while reaching their goals. So Sarah, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Sarah, obviously I'm always wanting to get a little bit of a backstory. So for my listeners, give us a little bit of an understanding of what took you into the accounting profession. Why did you become an accountant?
I think I was actually always destined to be an accountant. When I was a young child, my mother let us pick out our Valentines. So we had this catalog, it was called the Currents catalog, and we would pick out what design of Valentine we wanted, and she would order them for us, and we'd, make them for our class.
Okay.
So year after year, I selected a Valentine that was a checkbook. And I wrote a check to each student in my class, filling out the payee and the hugs and kisses and the amount, and would fold it up. And so I think, that always fascinated me. Money always fascinated me. My parents included me in a lot of conversations about our family and how we decided to spend money and kind of how they divvied up, the responsibilities of what our house looked like. But I think from a small kid, I was just interested in money.
That is awesome. I love that. That's a nice
Yeah.
little Valentine's story there, especially writing out the checks to each of the students and helping them see, okay, you've got a credit here with me. So this is
Yeah.
really kind of cute. All right. So then you obviously went into accounting, got your degree. Tell me about what happened next as it related to your career.
Yeah, so I went to Texas A&M, and I was like accounting or finance, and according to the career services, accountants made, $3,000 to $5,000 more coming out. So I was like, perfect, I want to be an accountant. And then Price Waterhouse was recruiting on our campus, and I knew that I wanted to go into the Big Four accounting, and I wanted to move back to Fort Worth, and they had a position, and they said, do you want to do audit or tax? And I said, what is available in Fort Worth? Because that's my hometown. They're like, tax. I was like, I love tax. I've always wanted to do tax. So kind of just opportunistic of falling into that. Definitely knew I wanted to be in accounting. I prepared tax returns for about 5 years. I'm not the best tax preparer. I'm not horrible. I just don't want to keep up with it. And I'm not detail oriented enough. And so then I went and worked for Alcon Labs, which at the time was in and out of the Novartis family, and really got to measure up like my compliance. And accounting to me is very historical looking. We're always working, behind us, where I got some finance chops in the forward looking piece of kind of the second, the other part of accounting and finance of forecasting, budgeting, and cash flow management.
I love your story simply because I think a lot of my listeners can relate to the fact that with our careers, oftentimes it's unknowingly which doors are going to open, which windows are going to become open. And all of a sudden, these opportunities present themselves. And clearly with you going back to your hometown, becoming that tax person, obviously, these are things that then affected your career trajectory. And now you found yourself in this situation where you are now. So I'm curious, why start an accounting business?
So when I worked at Novartis, I traveled the world. I commuted to Germany for about 18 months. I was in India for extended periods of time. And I have 2 children and a husband, and so I was away from home too much, and it was too disruptive to our family life. And so first I went and worked with a small family office because I just needed to kind of be a landing spot, and
Uh-huh.
that was a great experience. When you're working with a multinational, you never worry about payroll. The bank never calls you. You don't have any of these small business pressures. And so it was great for me to see this is how like small business America is, what their day-to-day struggles were.
I love it.
Yeah. And after a bit, I bought a multimedia company and ran that for a little bit and decided to sell that off. And so kind of I was like, okay, what do I need to do? And, being close to my hometown, I'm known in my community. Oh, can you help me with my accounting? Can you help me with my accounting? And I was like, I mean, I've sold my other business. I didn't want to be an accountant. I always took my MBA. I have a focus in marketing. I wanted to be an accountant like early on, but I didn't want to be like a defined CPA for the rest of my life. That when I was in public accounting, that appeared at the time very boring to me. I did not want to be like the partners that I saw. And so the idea of kind of like going from marketing back into accounting, I was like, sure, I can help you. And, by the end of that first year, I had 3 employees and a full book of business. And, I think that kind of that marketing experience of running my own multimedia company, as well as my focus of my MBA being in marketing and not accounting, really helps me balance like getting clients as well as being a technical expert.
Oh, I'm just loving this because I really do like your story simply because of the fact that I do find that a lot of people kind of follow a similar trajectory. But the highlight of this is the fact that you saw yourself not so much as an accountant, but as a marketer. And clearly that's a skill set that's going to lend itself very well to you building your business, which you clearly did. So I'm kind of curious as to the marketing side of things. Where do you feel that gave you a leg up as to growing your business and actually helping you find the clients that you were able to get?
Yeah, and when I say marketing, I'm not like, for those checking out my website, it's not super fancy. I don't do a lot. I'm posting on social media once, maybe twice a week. I think for me, I don't want to say I'm always selling, I'm always relationship building. And just because you tell me no now doesn't mean it's no forever. And I think having run that multimedia company where I was very focused on sales, I got a lot of no's. And they just don't hurt my feelings anymore. At the very beginning, you're just like, no, like, someone's like, it's like part of your worth as a person. And I'm like, having kind of run that gamut, it doesn't, if you don't ask, you don't get. And so I think, just having that experience and being told no so many times, no doesn't hurt me now. And no just means not yet. Or, maybe there's a different partner in my community that might be a better fit. I'm always referring things to other accountants that, maybe we're not a good fit, but here's another great person that you can work with. And so that's kind of what I see as marketing for me and what's helped me build my business. But, it's about relationships.
Yeah, well, first of all, there's some great words of wisdom in there. I like the fact that you're emphasizing that this is still a personable business, and the fact that so much of it's numbers focused, and we fail to sometimes recognize that it's still people's oriented. We have to have our clients, we've got to interact with them, and we've got to be able to do so in a personable way. But the same thing that you just mentioned a moment ago is so very important. We can't take this personally, which is to simply say in the marketing, you're going to get a lot of no's, a lot of rejections, but it's not you being rejected. It's just perhaps they're not in a situation where they need or see value in your services. But it's not to say that you're not a good individual. But yet I think some people struggle with the fact that those rejections, those no's, are perhaps taken personally, and that does hurt their self-esteem, and it helps them struggle in the marketing. Yet you're able to see past that and obviously weather that storm. So I like how you were explaining that. So thank you for it. So let's dive into a little bit of your services, because clearly you were doing the bookkeeping, the tax, but more importantly, you moved into the CFO space, offering what some people refer to as fractional part-time CFO. This type of service is something that a lot of people like to talk about and are considering offering. So let's talk about that for a minute. What is, as you define, fractional or part-time CFO type services?
I think fractional CFO services are the mix of accounting and finance, right? So like I
Mhm.
said, the accounting has to be accurate. I mean, you can't make decisions if you have bad bookkeeping, accounts unreconciled. I mean, bad data in is just bad data out.
Yeah.
So I feel like my job is to take the data that our team, so we have a team of 7 people. So we have some people, we do bookkeeping for some clients, we're
Mhm.
getting them there. But like my specific role is to take that data and say, so what? What does this mean? What does this balance sheet mean? What does this P&L mean? are you on track for your goals? You told me you wanted to do XYZ. Or how are we doing against that? Or, we need to pump the brakes on this. Like, we got a AR problem. So I feel like a lot of times from a compliance perspective, accountants were very like, we've reconciled the accounts, we've checked the boxes, we are done. Here's your package. And what our team does is we're like, here's your package. And as a business owner, these are the things you need to look at. And sometimes they're congratulatory emails like, Roger, you did a great job. Like, you knocked sales out of the park this month. Or, you spent a little bit more on XYZ. Where's the return on that? So it's almost like an accountability partner for the business. We consider ourselves business partners with the clients that we're working with.
Well, one of the things I'd like to add to this, and it might differ a little bit from what you just shared, but I'd like to get the clarification here, is I first of all would agree as it relates to bookkeeping. That is historical. That's where we're taking all the transactions and preparing the financial reports. So clearly it's basically saying, here's the narrative, the story of what happened in the business, and we're presenting it to them in the P&L, the balance sheets, the cash flow statements. And these are things that are useful, but only if used. So they're there, but how many people actually utilize them? So from an accounting perspective, that's where I feel the accounting steps in. It's then analyzing those reports and interpreting them for the client, giving them the information that's in a useful way for them to then manage their business. But what you're talking about as it relates to CFO services is then that business management. It's the fact that we as an accounting profession have the ability to give insights as to the business model. Is what the company is doing profitable? Is it successful? And forward thinking, we can do the projections as it relates to cash flow needs. We can look at the payables and receivables, what's happening with regards to the client relations. We're able to dive into the business model itself and help the client understand whether or not what they're doing is profitable. And so that is where that CFO role plays in. But at the same time, it also sometimes gets involved with the banking, trying to acquire capital, trying to work with investors, trying to actually tell the narrative of the business such that others may want to get involved. So that fractional CFO service is much more forward engaging with the clients. It's more proactive. But the other thing that's really, really nice is it's creative. And that's one of the things that I think your marketing agency probably brings to light, is the fact that now you get to be in that creative space of how you can help the client. So I want to ask, when does someone actually need this type of CFO related services? When does a client actually want to pay for something like this?
Yeah, I think if you're an existing business and you're growing steadily over time, and maybe you're above 2 to 3 million, or you're bringing in receipts of 2 to 3 million, it's
Mhm.
probably time to interact with someone, even on a fractional part-time basis, a monthly or a quarterly checkup. And maybe you have an in-house full-time bookkeeper, you outsource, the bookkeeping. But I think if you're above the 3 million and you're wanting to continue to grow, that's probably a time to reach out and connect with a fractional CFO. On the other hand, if you're at zero, but you have, private equity money, or you're trying to grow at an exponential rate, right? You haven't been around for a few years, but you're trying to quadruple in 6 months. That fractional CFO or even full-time CFO is really the business partner you need. You need someone who's talking to the banks, preparing for outside investors. They know where to get capital. They also know what other people are going to be looking at your finances. And I don't mean that in a manipulation way. It's okay, we need to beef up cash because this is going to be what's most important to this party. Or we need more turns on our inventory, slightly. Like, if we're able to make this one little tweak, this is how much impact, we're going to have in our financial statements. And I think that's where you're getting value of a CFO.
Ooh, I like that, because doing pro formas, forecasts, those are some of the things I enjoy, because you get to then be creative as to, here's how we could adapt or change the business model. And if we increase pricing here, cut costs here, all of a sudden you have this new business model that you're able to go to the client with and say, have we considered this? And so I like what you're sharing. So the question I'd have is, when you take on a client initially and you're offering CFO related services, what is one of the first things you actually look at or review as you're beginning that client relationship?
Yep. So we do what's called a profit assessment every single time. What we're doing is we're looking at how your systems are set up, because depending on how fabulous your bookkeeping team is before, we might be able to shave, hours of manual stuff. I mean, we can simplify your process most of the time. You're not using rules or you're not using QuickBooks or NetSuite to the fullest capability. So we look at how your system is working. And then we look at what your financials are telling us. And we don't spend, I mean, we do get a basic from the business owner. Let's say we spend 2 to 3 hours just understanding your high level business, but we actually don't want an overload of data from the business. We want to come back to you kind of as a fresh set of eyes of like, I know what you're like, maybe that's what you've told us, but this is what your finances are telling us. You're actually telling me that marketing is your number one driver of how you get new business because you're spending more money there. And then we'll be in a conversation. That's not important. That's not true. That's not how we're doing. I'm like, well, this is what your finances say from a purely professional perspective. You're telling me these are your priorities, or this is what's happening in your business, in though your narrative from the business owner is sometimes different. And so we're trying to point out like how these differences occur, or maybe sometimes business owners, they're so busy, they're so overwhelmed, they're just trusting things to get done by other people. And so it can be pretty eye-opening, or it can be like, yep, that's exactly what I thought. That's why I thought, that's why we're here. That's why we need your help.
I'm loving this because my listeners will know this. I really focus on the narrative as it relates to the accounting information. Accounting is the language of business, and the company is communicating via these numbers to the business owner what is going well, what needs attention, what needs to be fixed. And as accounting professionals, we are the interpreter. We're the one that's going to translate this information and communicate it back to the business owner. And just like you described, sometimes the business is different in the numbers than what they're thinking they're experiencing. And when that narrative differs, it's basically a call to attention of, okay, why are you thinking on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, this is happening in your company, but yet this is where you're spending your money, your time. This is what's happening as it relates to sales and so forth. All of a sudden, you're able to say, how do these two differ and what do we need to now align? And so this is a great conversation that every CFO needs to be having with their client to actually understand what needs to change in the business. So this is great. Now, I do focus quite a bit on KPIs. I'm a very big fan of leading and lagging indicators. I really love the numbers. What are some of the metrics that you actually focus on with your clients? Maybe 3 things that you would identify as being priorities within any organization.
Yeah. So we do a lot of work with private medical practices and attorneys. And so I am on them all the time about accounts receivable. What their turns are, who's collecting, because if you cannot collect, your family doesn't eat ultimately down the road, right? I mean, so a lot of people really like to neglect collectibles. They don't want to make calls, all of that. So I am big on that. I'm also, we're always looking at cash balances in the cash forecast. Okay, this is how many weeks of cash you have on hand, or this is how we're deploying this if you're having a big capital investment. So I am focused on gross profit, AR, and cash in the bank. I mean, I think with those things, you're able to really narrow down what's the most important thing to the practice or clinic.
I'm loving this as well because the accounts receivable is one of the places I also begin. The business owner, so often when I'm communicating with them, they act as if it is money in the bank, that they'll get 100% of what's owed to them. And to help them realize that as these accounts age, they're oftentimes going to miss out on some of the funds, and they're going to only collect a percentage of it. But when you dive into the aged accounts, it's interesting to me how old some of these accounts can actually be, and yet they still think that they're going to be paid off. So to go in there and manage the receivables, accelerating the payments, and more importantly, collecting more of the payments, you can really make a big difference within an organization. And as you correlate that, the cash flow as it relates then to the payables, if you can hold on to the money longer, earning perhaps interest or having up a large enough reserve to help weather some of the storms, cover payroll and so forth, you can make the business experience so much better. And the ulcers that the client may have will start to recede simply because they're not dipping so low into the account as they're paying out the bills. So yeah, you're touching on some of the same things that I address. So what's one of the biggest financial missteps that you find as you work with your clients from a CFO perspective that these small businesses are making?
I see a lot of business owners abdicate responsibility of the financials to an office staff, a bookkeeper, someone who they've trusted for years. And most of the time they start off great, or maybe they're still doing a good job, but the accountant isn't actually most of the time in charge of producing the sales or in charge of, we can't deliver good financial results, right? So sometimes I see the business owners kind of abdicate the responsibility of understanding what their finances are telling them, or they're just, thinking that this is going to continue on behind the scenes. Some recent uncoveries that we've found and kind of corrected and identified, there's a lot going on right now with credit card processors. And so I see money getting withheld for excessive fees, or money being not settled in a timely manner. And so we've been spending a lot of our time through the summer going through each of our practices and making sure they have tight credit card transaction reconciliation processes, but connecting with their provider to understand, all the reports they're getting, and looking at failed transactions and things like that. That's where we're spending a bit of our time, because that's AR.
Yeah.
Just because you're running someone's credit card doesn't mean it actually always goes all the way through to your bank, even though it should.
You made a comment in there that I really appreciate, because with my controller here at the office, I have within our accounting department an individual that I've tried to educate, and she's done a phenomenal job of this, into understanding that she needs to push back on the various things that are happening within the organization. And she looks at different expenses, things that we have going on in various departments, and asks why. And just asking that curiosity question of, why is this important? Why is this necessary? Why are we spending these funds? She challenges all of my managers to actually understand why they're doing the things that they're doing as they spend various funds. And there are certain things that managers will simply say, oh, we bought that and I forgot to cancel it, or I bought this, but I never ended up using it. I had the intentions of using this, but eventually it became a B, C, or D item. And although I'm paying for it, I'm just never using it. And those things have just been only achieved simply because of her questioning and challenging and pushing back. If she did not do that, there would be expenses that would go unchecked and paid, just slipping through the cracks. And so what you're describing, I think, kind of falls into that spectrum of being able as an accounting professional to ask, to be proactive, to have a voice within the company. And as we work with our clients, it's appropriate. I feel it's necessary that we actually ask these questions about the business model. Tell me about this. Why is this important? Why are we spending these funds? So I like this part of the conversation. Now, let me move into something that I'm also very passionate about, that I understand you're also very interested in. I speak of, with my clients, building an organization that is no longer dependent upon them in the day-to-day operations, building what I refer to as a self-sustaining living entity that is autonomous from the business owner. And for that, it oftentimes giving them permission involves, taking time off. What is it that you do to actually encourage your clients to kind of recharge and take time off and have that permission?
Well, I mean, we talk about systems a lot. So before the world shut down in 2020, I actually had a 2-week vacation planned to Hawaii. And so I was testing my own self of, like, can I step away from my own business and do this? And ultimately, I did not get to take my vacation because of world events, but I have tested, can I personally leave my office for an extended period of time, and what happens? Do all my processes happen? And so we counsel business owners, you shouldn't have to be there every waking hour. And part of that is training others, bringing them up in the way that you want things done, but also developing systems. I mean, there should almost be a playbook for almost everything that happens on a day-to-day basis in your business. I think, as a business owner, you always have the certain pizzazz. There's certain customers that only want to talk to you. It should be, less than one hand of those people and those types of activities that are very owner dependent.
Well, the way I relate to this is I'm a workaholic. I'm an admitted self-described alcoholic, or workaholic, not alcoholic, workaholic. And so my point in this is the simple fact that I enjoy what I do. I love what I do. And I spend quite a bit of time doing what I do because I enjoy it and I'm good at it. But the problem is I need to actually help my business, help my individual employees understand that they can do their jobs without me. And so it is this disconnect that I'm intentionally trying to cause. And so to do what you were just describing, I intentionally try to not come in at the very beginning of the day so that they can start their days without seeing me. Also, at the same time, ending the day, I try to actually leave before they may see me. It's a difficult thing for me. My work ethic has always been I want to be the first one in the office and the last one to leave. And I push that. I intentionally won't walk out the door until somebody has actually left. Well, I started to realize I'm actually doing them a disservice because they need to be able to work autonomously from me. But in addition to this, I've found that it's also beneficial if I could actually take off a morning or an afternoon, take off a full day, and see in my absence, what is it that does not get done that either my people don't know how to do, or more importantly, don't feel they have the permission or trust to do. And as I come back, I'm able to identify, okay, what happened? What do you need me for? And as I realize, okay, that's something that if I were you, I would have done it this way. Now I'm trying to train them, educate them, more importantly, empower them to make some decisions in my absence, realizing, okay, they could have still acted without me being around. And as I go through that experience, I'm starting to realize, where am I the choke point in the business? And as I do this with my clients and they experience the same type of things, it's amazing the learnings that they have as they're actually now seeing, okay, when I'm gone, what is it that they're unable to do in my absence? So that's just kind of a related thing. Would you add
Sure.
anything to that?
Yes, I think, the how they, and not like from a control of HR, but like you said, what doesn't get done or what do they struggle with? And sometimes I question, because I have a lot of playbooks, I have a lot of instructions. That's just how we're running our firm. But am I communicating? Because I may not verbally communicate. I do a lot of videos, written things. Like, however I've written it, they didn't understand it because I didn't get the same result. And so do I need to change my communication, either
Mm.
method or it, like my Sarah language isn't translating to like the rest of the team. I must have said something or, not explained it adequately. So, I think we're in the process of pressure testing that the more I try to be less involved in the day-to-day things.
Beautiful, beautiful. No, that's great. So, as you and I are working with our clients, I'm curious, what experience have you had with regards to fraud, and what are some of the more common things that you may have experienced as you're working with your clients coming in as a CFO, and all of a sudden helping them realize there's some things that have been overlooked in their business?
Yeah, I think, fraud, people are very conscientious about their financial statements and who's having access to what. I think having a third party like a bookkeeper or, your tax person is not testing for fraud. I think people think of an accountant in general like, oh, they'll catch that at the end. They're
Yeah.
not doing that. Um, so I think, if I was a business owner, I would be asking for, hey, give me a copy of this account, this reconciliation this month. I think random spot checking is a way to help prevent that. We've been seeing a lot of phishing schemes.
Mm.
Click this, or oh, you didn't send me that payment, and someone will send the payment again. That's a good one. We've instituted what we call our payroll change form, where you actually have to talk to a human to have your account changed for payroll. We've been getting a few emails from clients, maybe their employees are sending us an email that says, hey, update my direct deposit form. And we're now requiring a handwritten signature and a phone call to make those changes, because that's where we're seeing fraud perpetrating as well.
These are some great tips, and I'm going to add to them some that I have in my company or also with my clients. One of which is every transaction has to have a receipt. And so even if it's a recurring thing, it's a receipt by the manager or the individual that's approving this so that they can actually account for, here's what's going on. And then with regards to the transactions, anything that is not a recurring transaction, we do expect some type of an explanation of what the purpose of it is. What are they trying to accomplish with it, so that they have an explanation. And fortunately, so many of the transactions today come with digital receipts. They come in via email. And so those are then used as an email forwarded to the accounting department to say, here's what's going on, put it in this department. This is the suggested, let's say, chart of account that it should go into. So there's a variety of things that we're trying to do that enable communication. But the thing I wanted to point out is, still, as the business owner, as the one running the business, I still behold or take upon myself to actually know and understand the expenses. And I look at every month the expense details, and I go through, and it does take some time to go line by line. But I'm first of all looking for, are there any transactions that are with an unfamiliar organization, something new that I'm not familiar with? So that stands out pretty easily, because doing this monthly, I'm clearly going to know, okay, I've never seen that transaction before, or that business. So that causes me to reach out and ask, okay, what is this? What was it for? But also I'm asking about things that are being paid for on a recurring basis, and I'm spot checking. Okay, I'm going to ask, is that something still essential or needed within the organization? And I'll ask my management whether or not this is something they're still using. But then as for the recurring ones, the ones where we have multiple transactions, such as our advertising and so forth, I'll actually look at those and see, okay, were there redundant ones on a specific day or whatever? And what I have found is there are instances where I get double billed. I just dealt with one recently. And what it turned out being, with some research, is that I wasn't billed in a particular month, and they double billed me in the following month. things like that. But it's me knowing my business and becoming intimately aware of what are all the transactions going on. I'm holding accountable my management, I'm holding accountable my accounting department, and all these things kind of put me at ease in thinking maybe I am going to limit the likelihood of fraud and so forth. So would you add anything more to that?
Yeah, I think for us, we encourage all clients to have, we called it accounting email. So it's accounting at whatever your extension is, and
Mhm.
all bills need to go there. And
Love
so
it.
that way we're not, we're acting as a member of your team for a variety of reasons, but then we're in control of receiving all the receipts. And so from an accounting standpoint, we're looking at them, and Roger, if there's a double bill for a month, we're reaching back out to you. So we're kind of, it's very, very similar, but taking it as accounting is looking at it and triaging it first versus your manager.
Yeah, very good. I like this. This is a fun discussion. All right. So the next one, this sometimes comes up. It's the business owner wondering, are they paying themselves enough? Sometimes they're not paying themselves at all. Sometimes they're wondering, are they funneling too many of their personal fund expenses through the business? How do you actually help a business owner figure out whether or not they should be paying themselves or how much they should be paying themselves? Clearly, they should be paying themselves, though.
Yeah. I was like, I don't think I've had anyone question their personal expenses that they're running through. That's between them, God, and the IRS. But that does come up sometimes if they're selling a business. We'll do an add back if we're kind
Uh-huh.
of looking at some of those. And, there's lots of tax advantages for owning a car, all those types of things. But what we look at, we're a big fan of an S corp. I think
Okay.
that's for most of my clients are professional services, so that is the desired legal entity structure that we like for them. Most of the time, we're looking at reasonable compensation for a W-2, and then we're paying out the rest as distributions. As part of our profit analysis, we're seeing what your net income is. And so we're helping make adjustments. Obviously, we're focused on increasing your net income and either, ensuring that part of that goes to pay for your taxes, or it's back out it's to the business owner or investing in the business. So we look at it on a percent basis. This is kind of your target, and that's, if you're looking at it from a compensation point, we're saying, okay, this is your W-2, can you live off this, yes or no, where do we need to make some adjustments? And then everything else is a distribution, and that's based on your performance as a business owner. So the better you do on collections, and almost kind of treating yourself like I don't know, a highly compensated employee, like your own incentive stock. You have stock in yourself. You have
Yeah.
stock in your own business. And so if you're meeting these metrics, you're obviously able to pay yourself more.
Yep. Yeah. And then we get into conversations about dividends and just
Sure.
a variety of ways to pay. So, no, this is a good thing. I'm curious, having now offered CFO services, how has it changed your firm? How has it changed from when you were offering just bookkeeping and tax? What's changed about you and your relationship with the clients? And also, what's happened with your revenue?
Well, I don't do taxes anymore, so that is one thing. We have great tax partners, and we refer that work out. I think we've really had to up level our staff, and they would say that too.
Nice.
Being a bookkeeper and compliance is great. Like, that's the foundation. You have to be an excellent bookkeeper. And now we're really focused on training our staff of, okay, what next? One of our values is proactive problem solving. So we have a decision making framework. Okay, how can I solve this problem myself before I get involved with a manager on our team or have to ask the client? So we're really stressing that critical thinking piece of, okay, why is this important to the business owner? And really, bringing our staff accountants and bookkeepers into that mentality of thinking like a business owner. For me personally, I'm working with more, I'm working with higher monthly retainer clients and fewer clients. And we've seen our income increase significantly. So for me, I would rather work with a smaller group of people that are, I know everything about their business. When we're
Mhm.
working with a physician's office, we're basically their HR department. Sometimes we get asked to troubleshoot IT, or like we're a member of your team. And so we're helping you solve all kinds of problems, even if sometimes they're not accounting problems. Um, and it can be simple things of like, hey, help me write this job description and put it on ladders based on what you've seen in your other clinics. And so we're really able to kind of crowdsource some activities around that.
Perfect. And regarding the advisory services, do you separate the billing as to reflect just the advisory services, or do you bundle it with like the bookkeeping and combine them as a single fee?
Yeah, so I know it's going to be death to Sarah, we're not adopting value pricing.
Uh-huh.
So we are still charging by the hour. We have a line item called accounting services, and we have another one called projects, because sometimes we have special projects that are kind of outside of our monthly retainer. And so
Okay.
they're getting a line item description of what we're doing.
Uh-huh.
We have found our businesses are adding legal entities and changing at such a rapid pace that we were just getting angry with ourselves on value pricing. So they get a description of exactly what was done for the time.
Perfect. And then how much time do you typically spend with a CFO client? And what I'm asking here are two things. How much time do you spend on their account, whether it's with them directly or indirectly, but also how often are you meeting with them and how long is that meeting?
Yeah, I would say for our medical practices and law offices that are full service, we're spending between 10 and 20 hours a week working their account. And that's like their bookkeeping, that is their full service, cash
Mhm.
management, everything. I'm spending about 2 to 3 hours a month with them, doing a high level review, and then we do a monthly meeting. Some of my clients have been so busy they haven't, and enjoying summer, which they should. We haven't been able to have monthly meetings, so we've just been recording Zooms for them, and then they catch it on the go. And we're popping up our spreadsheet and we're walking them through the financials, and they seem to be loving that. So if they can't get the in-person/Zoom meeting, they're getting a video that they can review at their leisure about the things that we're seeing in their financial statements.
Very nice. So it sounds like about an average of 40 hours a month doing the bookkeeping. In
Sure.
addition to that, you're doing 2, 3 hours of CFO related services, and you have that once a month meeting with them. So I don't know if you're going to be able to break this out, especially from the bookkeeping, but just for the CFO services, do you know what your average is that you're actually charging your clients for the time that you're spending on them in that capacity?
Probably around $2,000.
Beautiful. I love it. Yeah, most of the ones I'm familiar with, they're ranging between $1,500 to $2,500. So you're smack in the middle of that. Generally speaking, they're spending about 2, 3 hours a month, as you indicated. There are firms that fortunately do charge much more. I know of individuals that are charging 3,000, 5,000, even one of which is 10,000 a month for their CFO related services. So the range is there, but the average is that 15 to 2,500. So there you go. The one question I want to ask is, how has it changed for you personally now that you're in this CFO space versus the tax and the bookkeeping that you were once doing?
I think it kind of goes back to some of your earlier comments about being creative. I mean, I don't consider accountants super creative people, so that's weird for us to say, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Compliance is kind of like everybody does compliance, and you got to do it a certain way, and there's no flair to compliance. I mean, like, boo. So I feel, when you're that CFO piece and you're that forward-looking piece, you're getting a business owner who's excited about their future. And there's something a lot more exciting about growing business than compliance. And so you kind of feed off that energy of, we're going somewhere and we're doing some amazing things. So let's do it together. And
Yeah.
that's really fun to be with.
Yeah, I like the creative space as well. One of the things I enjoy is being able to go into the client and not just tell them what they already know about what their business has done in the past, but come in and actually offer, hey, by the way, did you know your profit margin on this particular product is quite high and it's much better than the others? This advertising seems to work. Why don't you spend more here doing this? And then we can actually increase the number of sales by 20%. That should drop this much more money to your bottom line. And it's this creative space of, have you considered doing this? What about this? This particular thing you're spending money on, have you considered actually repricing that, maybe getting another service? All of that creative space is my ability to contribute to the business, and the client actually feels as if I'm now an asset to them rather than an expense in the sense of my services. So yeah, I quite enjoyed all of this. I do have a personal question for you. You mentioned that you've got your 2 children. What do you feel that they're taking as they're watching you as their parent basically start and build this business? What are you hoping that they're learning from you as a parent?
So my husband is an attorney. He runs his own practice.
Uh-huh.
So there's been quite a few, we have very flexible schedules and we're able to be at a lot of things, but I think our kids they definitely see us work a lot. My kids are 13 and 15. They both learned QuickBooks this summer. They both reconcile their own check accounts. I have them doing some of our family finances, and my daughter informed me we spend too much money at Amazon and Chick-fil-A, and I pointed that right back to her. So,
Good job.
they definitely see kind of the hard work and what that entails. But I think they also see the flexibility and the fun things that we get to do too. So yes, maybe you're not, you're working a little bit later sometimes, but then we're going to get to do these things that others might not get to enjoy. more so on the flexibility side. I generally pick up my kids every single day from school.
I like this. This is really good. Now, regarding the spouse, you said he's a lawyer. He's obviously running his own business. What kind of support has he given you for you to be able to start and build your business?
Oh, I think we need to flip that question around. So my husband has been he was a solo practitioner for 15 years and then has been in a partnership with some other great attorneys for a few years.
Okay.
And I was helping him launch that as I worked the corporate job, right? So
Wow.
I had the steady job and he kind of got to do that.
Okay.
I went out on my own in 2018. And so that was a year of, okay, we're both being on our own. And by then he was quite more established and has definitely had a steady income. And so he was able to support me kind of through that next building phase. So I don't think it's, we're definitely not a 50-50, everybody's contributing everything at all times. I think it's, the ebbs and flows of our business, of kind of what we need he's a family attorney. So he is less busy from November to January because most people don't try to get in legal battles between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So that's like a slower time for him. And that, as we're kind of gearing up for wrapping up at the end of the year. So we do find it kind of interesting how our schedules ebb and flow with each other.
That's nice. I appreciate hearing that. The support that I find people get from family and friends that's essential to be successful. And clearly the two of you are doing that with each of your businesses. Regarding your business and your advice, I would like to ask, what would you tell your younger self if you were to reflect back on what you did, say in 2018, going out on your own? What advice would you give to someone who is beginning?
I'd say do it even sooner. I did not even imagine that I could have a job like this when I was graduating college and working at a Big Four. You just think that this is the only thing you can do. This is how it's always been done. I think I wish I would have done it even sooner, faster. Fractional CFO services weren't even really discussed in 2018. We weren't calling it that yet.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are like, oh, you called yourself Webb because you're virtual. I'm like, well, actually my last name is Webb. It's, it wasn't that creative. But I would encourage anyone, if you're working a full-time job somewhere and you think that you want to do this, get the boat as close to the dock as you can to make it as feasible as possible, but do it as quickly as possible.
Love it. Very good advice. And then regarding you, what are you grateful for?
I am grateful for the flexibility of this profession that allows me to kind of do all different things. I was a tax preparer, I worked in corporate finance, and now I'm kind of doing my own thing. But even that, I get to work with different types of clients. And so I'm really just grateful for the different experiences and the different exposure that I've had along the way.
That was beautiful. Yeah, lots to be grateful for. This is a wonderful profession to be in. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap this up, and as I wrap it up, I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought. But in kind of reflecting on what it is we've been discussing, I've got a few offers that I'd like to extend. First of all, Sarah is offering, if you'd like to, you can go to the episode description and find her information, her website, and reach out to her directly so that if you have any questions regarding her experience and so forth, she's inviting you to do so. In addition to that, what I'd like to do is share with you 3 programs. This is sponsored by Universal Accounting Center, and the first of which is personal finance. Interestingly enough, we're not accounting professionals in the sense that we're doing personal advice, but as accounting professionals, I'm sure you experience things where people are asking about finances as it relates to personal. Well, earlier Sarah mentioned her children being involved in the house finance. Well, there's a course that we have that's for free that addresses personal finance that you might find very interesting, especially for younger individuals. And I would encourage you to check that out and see how you might be able to bring this into the household and actually involve your children in the personal finance. So consider that. In addition, there is a book called Your Strategic Accountant. This is clearly for us as accounting professionals to understand what it is we can be doing to be the premier accounting firm in our area, offering the full suite of accounting services, particularly that of involving CFO and advisory services. Find out what that looks like and what it is you can be doing to best serve your clients and meet them where they're needing you most. So get the free copy of Your Strategic Accountant. Lastly, I also want to address the idea of getting the skills, the confidence, and competence to offer quality CFO and advisory services. For that, I invite you to become a profit and growth expert. It's here that we talk about the various things you need to consider as you're offering CFO services so that you can competently go out there and take care of your clients' needs as it relates to you're not only doing the bookkeeping and accounting and tax, but now helping them in the CFO and advisory space. So become a profit and growth expert. Go to the episode description and get the information you need for that. Now, as a summary of our conversation, there are a number of things that are highlights for me. The first of which is basically her trajectory, recognizing that in the choices that we make, there's these opportunities that present themselves. And as she was in school, what should I be doing? Should I be doing audit? Should I be doing tax? And the door opened itself to actually go back to her hometown. And clearly that then enabled her to go into the tax emphasis that she did. She obviously found her career progressing, working in business and so forth. But as she stated, it was in 2018, she went out on her own and started offering bookkeeping and tax services. Clearly, she saw the need to obviously move more into that advisory space. And in her comment of what she had done and that she would have wished that she did it sooner, I thought was very apropos to what we're experiencing. So many people lack the confidence or direction to move, and she clearly did. And her advice is to move sooner and faster. So all that being the case, I invite you to kind of consider what that might mean to you in your current circumstance. The other thing that I thought was quite nice is we were talking about things as it related to basically CFO and advisory services. And there were a few highlights there, one of which is basically understanding the definition of what CFO services are. When we're explaining this to our clients and what it is that we can do for them, she was able to explain that it's more than just the compliance, the transactional recording, the financial reports, but it's more in getting into that review, the analysis, the application, helping with cash flow. We were talking about receivables and how that's a great place to begin with our clients to make sure that they're collecting on the monies that they're obviously owed. She talked about the metrics to be looking at, and I think that's very important. We all need to identify what those key performing metrics are and find those for our clients so that we can best help them identify the leading and lagging indicators in their organization. We talked about things related to taking personal time off and getting that permission to do so, whether it's for us or for our clients, helping them realize that they should not be involved in the day-to-day operations of their business. And then with that, we also talked about compensation, helping them understand how much they should be earning and making. These are great conversations to be having with our clients and ones that we need to be discussing. And then I did appreciate the conversation about fraud. I think that's something that we perhaps don't talk about enough, putting into place various systems or processes to kind of ensure the quality of the accounting and that there is a less likelihood of fraud. And so those little insights there were very helpful. And then as it related to her family, her children and her spouse, she was able to show how they were actually very supportive of one another and at the same time involved with the finances. I like the fact that the children, even in their young teen years, are now involved with the family finances. I think that's a beautiful thing to realize, because I think too often in today's culture, they're just seeing us swipe the credit card. They just presume that the plastic has the all-empowering ability to just buy whatever, whenever. And more importantly, they don't understand the concept of what cash is. And so I think that's something very important to dive into. And so for that reason, I suggested that personal finance class that I shared at the beginning. So all that being said, Sarah, what would you like to leave as a closing thought?
Yeah, I think as a closing thought, I talked about the speed of getting out and doing it on your own as quickly as possible. And kind of back to what I originally said, on there, you're going to get a few no's, and do not let the first, second, third, 10th no mean that you're not equipped to do this. You are equipped, you just haven't found the right niche, or you haven't been introduced to the right person yet. So even though you're acting with speed to get out there, you're going to hit some roadblocks or speed bumps with the no's, but you just got to keep going.
Yes, and that's where we talked about not taking it personally, and I think that's very good advice. So thank you for that. So here's what I'm going to do to wrap up the show. First and foremost, I want to invite you, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. We'd love to have you as a listener. Basically, get the notifications each and every week as what the new show is, who the new expert is, that you can actually listen to and actually learn from as it applies to running your business. In addition to that, I'd like to invite you to go to universalaccounting.com. There we have in the navigation the podcast highlights. The podcast highlights happen to be playlists that we've compiled of the various shows that we've had over the years. These are playlists that you can binge listen to. In binging them, you can focus on the topics that are relevant to your current situation as it is now, whether it's growing your business with marketing and sales type topics, talking about pricing and so forth. It's perhaps involving accounting services, whether or not you should be including bookkeeping, accounting, tax, CFO type related services, and what those might look like as it relates to your clients. We're also talking about workflow efficiencies, things that you can be doing as it relates to tech stacks, training your staff, setting in place standard operating procedures, how to onboard clients, service your clients. These are playlists that you definitely want to dive into and learn more about. And then lastly, we have things that are off topic that might be very applicable to your current situation, such as mental health. These are things that I'd encourage you to check out. So definitely go now to universalaccounting.com and check out the podcast highlights. In addition, I want to invite you to GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference where we invite the experts to speak to us from the stage and share with us their insights as to what it is we can be doing to build the premier accounting firm in our area. Come hear them address things that are related to getting the clients that you deserve, basically growing your business at the pace that you can be happy with and meet your financial needs. We're talking about accounting services. What is the cutting edge? What is the client needing and wanting from us as it relates to quality accounting services? We're also talking about running a successful business, the efficiencies, the staff, the various things that we can do to ensure that we actually have a company that we can be proud of. Come listen and learn and find out what you can be doing to work on your business. I also invite you to come to the conference to meet your peers, find out those individuals that are doing what you're doing and doing it well. Make those connections, build those friendships, and most importantly, collaborate with them to see what additional services you might be able to offer your clients in collaboration with them. I also invite you to come and listen and learn from our staff here at Universal Accounting Center, those key individuals that I work with that are committed to your success, allowing you to be in business for yourself, but not by yourself with Universal Accounting. So all these things, definitely check them out. I invite you, if you would like to discuss these principles or more, anything that we're discussing on the show, give us a phone call. You can reach us at 801-265-3777, or you can visit us at Universal Accounting School. Why? Because accounting success is universal. And with that, you can actually understand that accounting success is what you need. So with that, enjoy yourself, be safe out there, and have a wonderful day. Sarah, that was wonderful.
That was great.
Yeah. What I'm going to have you do now is record that little promo piece.
Okay, I'm ready. This is Sarah Webb. It was riveting to record Roger an episode of Building the Premier Accounting Firm. We discussed so many things about leaving your current role and getting close to the dock so that you can go out and do it, and not letting the nose hit you with a speed bump. So I invite you to listen and join in with us.
Perfect. All right. So here's what's going to happen. This, first of all, is live and actually did go out on various channels such as LinkedIn, Facebook. At